How to make yourself far less attractive and appealing to a narcissist. One of the main appetites, in other words, the thing that makes their stomach really and truly growl in life and makes them feel like, gives them narcissistic supply, is something that they do not possess. That's what they're starving for. They're starving for things they do not possess. And one of the characteristics that you possess that they do not possess, or their victims or their prey. And again, we're not talking from the paradigm of being victims here. We're talking about from the paradigm of being victors here. When you leave or when you left your narcissistic abuser, you walk the first steps of victory. But let me tell you this. Irresponsible people prey upon overly responsible people. That's the nature and that's the essence of setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is when you establish, this is what I'm responsible for, this is what you're responsible for, and we keep things operating nice and neatly for the best interests of both parties. So the narcissist thrives and they look for people who are overly responsible, who are going to nurture every emotional sensitivity they have. People who are going to eggshell walking people, not straight talking people, not truth tellers, okay? So when you begin to overlook the red flags and begin to adjust you, okay, to their dysfunctional and predatory nature, that's when you begin to show them that you were willing to take over responsibility for their irresponsibility in having developed things that they don't have. You're willing to be overly responsible for their lack of self-control. You're willing to be overly responsible for their softness, for their sensitivity, for their over sensitivity to any form of conversation which puts it back on something that they've done, something they've said, some cruel and callous way they've acted in disregard towards you. You bring that up and then they overreact like you're calling them the worst thing on earth, and then you go into comfort mode. You go into, oh no, I didn't. You go into explanation mode when you really didn't have anything to explain. So when you go into explanation mode and oversensitivity mode and comforting them and coddling them and rocking them back and forth to sleep and wiping the tears from their eyes, they say, you might see a look of what they call duper's delight or pleasure come over them when you begin to fawn over them. Remember the I think there's 4 of them: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So when they blow up because they lack self-control, then they're not taking responsibility for their lack of self-control. When you fawn for their lack of self-control, they say, well, I got a good one here. I got a good man here, or I got a good woman here. So you begin to take on almost a parental role, almost a role of like you were nurturing a little infant or a little toddler. And then that's what you have. You just get more and more and more of what that type of behavior nurtures. And at the moment that you set boundaries, the moment that you say, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be responsible for your overreaction to these unemotional, merely truthful statements of fact from my experience, okay? And the moment that your experience, and you have to remember, they do not have, people who are trying to nurture a good fostering relationship where there's good communication, there's open communication, are going to take responsibility for asking questions or bringing up things that are an issue to them, okay? So let's say they promised, for whatever reason, your car's broke down, they promised to pick you up at 3 o'clock. You call them up at 3:30, they're late. And Then you get, oh, I forgot. Oh, I'm on my way. Then you call them up at 4 o'clock. And then by 4 o'clock, you're fuming. They come and pick you up finally. And you say, well, when you pick me up an hour late, it makes me feel, and you forgot that I needed to, it makes me feel like I can't count on you. They blow up on you. They blow up on you. And all you did was articulate the truth of what their behavior would cause in any rational, healthy individual. All you're trying to do is speak the truth. Then they begin to gaslight you. You're always complaining. You're overly sensitive. All you ever do is put me down. While they have lost it. They've lost all sense of truth. Because your truth, the real truth, it actually comes in radical opposition to their deception, their delusion of who they are. Okay? So, look, be a person who sets boundaries early, clarifies and sets specifics of what your expectations are. It's okay for you to have expectations. It's okay for you to clarify them. That's the healthiest, most normal aspect of love. Clear, unambiguous expectations of what you expect of somebody that you relate to as a friend, as a coworker, as an employee, as an employer. Everything in life has clarity. Vagueness and ambiguity is part of what happens when you get into ruminating about what you can do. And here, let me put it to you like this, and then I'm going to conclude. A narcissist never thinks that it's their fault. They never think or are willing to take responsibility that they've done anything wrong. The ultimate appetite of their target, or one of them, because I think I'm going to do a few series of videos on this. The ultimate appetite of someone that they target is an overly responsible individual. They never think that anything was their fault. And they can't think of one thing that they could have done differently. They don't self-reflect. But let me ask you this, to tell you and prove to you and show to you that if you've been in a situation with narcissistic abuse, it could be a mother, it could be a father, it could be your sibling, it could be an aunt, an uncle, it could be an employer, it could be a significant other person. When something happens and something goes wrong, you think it's your fault. What you ask yourself, or you say to yourself, what did I say? What did I do? You think that. They don't think that. They never think that. Because their immediate response is, it's you. But your immediate response is it me? Now, there's nothing wrong with considering if you have done something wrong, but you think that first. They don't. That's what proves the over-responsibility, almost without analyzing it. And then you fill in the blanks. If they give you no explanation for why they blew up or why they were late, they take no responsibility whatsoever, you come up with their explanations. You come up with their justifications. You come up with their rationalizations. You blame it on their childhood. You blame it on their parenting. You blame it on how long they went without. You blame it on the story they told you about their ex. But then you're finding out the story they told you about their ex is going to be the story that they tell to the next victim about you. Whew. All I'm saying, beloved, is wipe away from your slate living without boundaries and being overly responsible for things that are not your responsibility. You know what your responsibility is? You, boo. Your responsibility is to control yourself and act in a way that is conducive with clear, concise, non-vague, and non-ambiguous conversation, clarity, offering focus, insight, and clarity to the individual or individuals you're interrelating with. That's what healthy is. All right. Well, that's the short message about how to make yourself unappealing to future narcissists. Stop being overly responsible and recognize the red flag of irresponsibility very quickly and very rapidly, and distance yourself from getting too close to irresponsible people. All right? Have a blessed day.